marketing or something like that today, right? But certainly excited. A lot of buzz around here about having the honor to be selected to play in the Redbox Bowl. Great game, great location, great opponent. Obviously, an opponent with a storied history, and know lots about him, having some experience, having played against him. But to be able to go to the state of California, where so many of our players are from, so many of our players' families reside, and so much recruiting that takes place for us in the state of California, certainly a tremendous opportunity for us on a big stage. So again, the excitement, quickly went through our facility and through our players and our coaching staff. So certainly looking forward to getting prepared for that game. Obviously, we're on the road right now recruiting about 100 miles per hour. So as soon as we get off the road, we will resume practices. But with that being said, open to questions.
Mario, can we just get a personnel update on several guys between Justin and what both his health is and if he intends to play in the game, Tony Brooks-James, Jalen Jelks, and any seniors who may be considering not playing due to just this being a bowl game?
Sure, full report. Justin is healthy, and Justin will play in the game. In terms of after the game and decisions after that, it's something we'll discuss at a later time, but you can expect to play in the game. The injury in the game, we held him out because he could not continue, and there was the possibility of being more severe than what it was. He took a good shot on the play where he was sacked when he went to the ground, and it's essentially a really deep bruise is what it is. But he's okay, and he's good to go, and he's looking forward to playing in the game. Other news, Penei Sewell will be back and ready to play in the game. Tony Brooks-James, he had a knee strain, but no real tear. So he was wearing a brace for, I guess it's now almost, a few, 10 days now since the game. And but we expect him to be recovered enough where he could start practicing with us at the very latest by the time we get to the bowl game itself. Jalen has been recovering well. We expect him to play. Stephen Jones has been doing great, expecting to play. Lana's come along well. We expect Lana to have an opportunity to, by the time we get to the bowl site, to be practicing and being a guy to full go. Kano, we don't know yet. That's a pretty good ab strain, so we're not positive. Austin Foley is good to go. He played the last game. Justin Collins will be good to go. Isaac Slade, we expect him to go as well. A guy that has been out a little bit because of the shoulder injury. And we expect Andrew Johnson to take his ready-to-play test this week. And if he can go, he will also play for us. Obviously, he hasn't played in our defensive scheme, but on special teams he will. Cyrus will be good to go. And then Hockey Woods is the only one that's still questionable. That's a long list, huh? You get all that?
Steve, second round, right?
Mm-hmm. Any of them tell you they'll consider whether or not they want to play in a bowl game or if they'll sit out a bowl game? Or
have any of our players? Yeah. That hasn't been brought up by anybody yet. If it does come up, it'll be addressed. I expect everybody to play in the game.
Last year, you had guys who kind of brought it to that last week. Obviously, the game was earlier. Would you have a point where you'd want guys to tell you before you game planning or a drop-dead date?
Yeah, right away. I think last year was such a chaotic period, right? With you didn't know who was going to be in the building, who was going to be out of the building, staffers leaving on a daily basis. So it was a little bit chaotic and a little bit of a different scenario for us. It'll be real simple going forward. Simple decision. Either you're playing in the game or not playing in the game, and those that are playing in the game will go to it, and those that won't. But we expect everybody to play in the game.
So they won't go to the game if they're not playing.
Correct.
Awesome. All right.
Mario, has anybody on your staff expressed interest about interviewing anywhere else, or do you anticipate any members of your staff not being part of the bowl game?
If they have opportunities, I encourage them to. I mean, it's just the nature of the business. I would never hold back anyone from having an opportunity or seeking an opportunity they really value. But as of right now, don't have any indication that someone will miss the bowl game or is going to go anywhere else. But if it does come up and it's something of real substance, I'll certainly bring that to your attention.
James?
To follow up on that, Mario, it has to be asked specifically because without a clause, this wouldn't even be an issue. But Jim obviously very much covets the Kansas State job that is now open. Has there been any talk between the two of you about that opportunity specifically in the last even few hours since that is officially now open?
If nothing has come up yet, if something does come up, he will come and see me and talk to me about it, and we'll go from there and certainly make anything, I think, there's a lot of transparency over here. So, but as of right now, nothing.
You mentioned the difference in having a December 15th to a 31st game. What is an estimation on when you guys will be off the road? And I mean, just not the exact date, but kind of a time frame. And then how does this change just your recruiting, being able to get through that early signing date this year instead of having to be interrupted like last year?
Yeah, last year that was a tough little situation to be in. I mean, I wanted to dress nice today, but I'm actually dressed like this for the home visit I'm going to go on as soon as we're done with the press conference. So it allows you to have your entire contact period uninterrupted, which last year we had to go and get things going for the bowl game, both from a practice standpoint and getting to the bowl site. So we really only had the opportunity to go out to a couple of homes, and they were strictly at night after the bowl functions and the bowl practices were done. We're already 1 full week in the contact period. We'll have the 2 full weeks. Our players started workouts last Wednesday. They'll work out through finals up until Wednesday. Then they'll have a couple of days off. And then we'll go back to player workouts where it's 7-on-7, team periods, 2-minute drill, lifting, running, conditioning, all that kind of stuff. Some of the fourth quarter program, an abbreviated version, to get back into shape. So until we resume our practices a week from Friday.
1 week from
This coming Friday.
more than almost 2 full weeks.
Almost 2 full weeks. Now, between that, they will essentially have practices like they do in the summertime, just not padded.
That it? What do you, Austin? All right.
Mario, obviously the Las Vegas Bowl last year didn't go the way you guys wanted it to. How important is it to have a better bowl experience this year, and what kind of a building block can that be for you guys going
Well,
forward?
bowl games are always important, right? It's the last game of the season, and I think obviously it's 2 different scenarios altogether. But whether it's the first game or the last game, bowl game, conference game, out-of-conference game, they're all going to be treated with the utmost importance. That's the only way to approach it. It's the only way we have approached it, and that'll be the case this game.
Steve, you have one? All right.
You know much on Michigan State? I mean, is that a team that you would have caught at any point this year, or have you had any people send you texts early on that know them, just an early scouting report?
Well, I mean, quite honestly, during this time of year, we're doing so much recruiting. I haven't watched a ton of tape on them, but being that they were one of the teams that were in the conversation of being a potential opponent, I have watched some film on them and had the opportunity to coach against them as an offensive line coach in the 2015 playoffs. And they are what we all know of Michigan State in their history, just a very physical and big football team, with some good explosive players. They've got to be top 2 or 3 against the run nationally. I know that, and from a scoring defensive perspective as well, I know that they're in the upper, 5 or 10 teams in the country. And anyways, what I saw on film is just that guys that control line of scrimmage, knock you back. They play a lot of quarters. They do a real good job of disguising their pressures and whatnot. So I know it sounds like I watched more film than I really did, but a little bit I'm relying on some of the stuff from the memory banks of playing them before, and they are consistent with what they do. They're a very well-coached football team. Always have been. Coach Antonio does a great job with them.
Front middle, James?
Since they did play Arizona State early in the season, when you were preparing for Arizona State, even did any of that game tape come up in the preparation for ASU? And how much will, since it's just rare for a non-conference game like that to have a common opponent, it was a September game, so how relevant is that in game prep? You have something to reference, but how relevant is it now that it's months later?
Well, what sticks out in your mind is, again, how physical the game was. In terms of schematically, the changes from then up until now, it's hard to say that everything would be identical to what they were doing early in the season. But the part that stands out is, that the score of the game is a pretty good indication of what that was. It was a very, hard-nosed, tough football game that both defenses played really, really well, and they handled the noise and the environment extremely well. And I know that Arizona State came back towards the end of the game and got it done. So, but I'll know more. When as we get on the plane. That big old bag that I have out there is loaded up with film. So between watching recruiting film and watching opponent film and breaking them down and start game planning for them, we'll have a pretty good idea by the time we get back together and talk.
2 more questions right here on the right, Austin.
Mario, I think you indicated that Justin wouldn't make a decision about his future until after the bowl game. Do you anticipate that that'll be the case for any underclassmen that are thinking about going pro? And will you have some conversations with those players before the bowl game just to kind of prepare them for that?
Yeah, what we did right away after the last game of the season is send all their stuff to the NFL Advisory Committee so that we can have the most factual data that we could have to be able to sit down with not only them but with their families and do our best to, again, present information that's valuable and relevant to making a great business and personal decision, and then do our best to advise them in terms of our thoughts on how it would best play out for them. So as soon as we get that process will start rolling. We did meet about it since the early part of the season that we would hold true to that process, and I expect our players to hold to that process as well. I think it's an important part of just establishing a culture. Is it perfect? No, but we're heading that direction, and I expect it to be that way. And I think I think it gives them the best chance to make a decision as well. I think this is a noisy time of year for those guys, right? Everybody's in their ear and trying to talk up draft status, and it's a lot of. Sometimes it's just a lot of noise that could really confuse a guy when their focus should be on kicking, doing well on final exams and preparing, recovering, right? It's been a good long season, a physical season, recovering and preparing to play their best football in order to make a great decision.
All right, last one, James, right here in the middle.
Just to follow that also, Mario, because I believe the rule was that you limited it 5 underclassmen that you get to request. I don't think you could put in like 30 names or something. So
We limited
presumably
to, I believe, 6 now. I think it was 5, then they moved to 6. I could be wrong on that.
So do you recall who this 6?
Oh, man.
I just didn't want to make any assumptions that Justin, Dylan, Troy. I mean, these are presumptive, but
Yeah, those are some of the names that are in there. Some alignment as well, because those guys certainly graded out really well. Because you want to, again, give them the best information you possibly can, and it's the best way to keep it real also. But in terms of who else was in that pool, is that what you're asking? Gosh, you mentioned it was Justin, it was Dylan, it was Troy, the juniors that really stood out in conference play in our regular season this year. You could assume it was those guys, the guys that the NFL showed that these guys probably need to get a reading to make a decision.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay, guys, thank you very much.